Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Our Golden 20s. Today, we are so excited to have Sarah Jenkins on the podcast. Sarah is a Toronto-based content queen who works as a full-time digital studio producer at CBC Sports by day, and she's a part-time personal content creator by night. For the last year, Sarah has been sharing daily vlogs of her life as a 20-something-year-old in Toronto on TikTok. Her content has blown up, and she now has just under 100,000 followers on TikTok and just over 15,000 followers on Instagram. We personally love Sarah's content and are so excited that she's here with us on the podcast today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Our Golden 20s. We are both big fans of your work and very excited to have you here.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah, I feel like it was like our stretch goal. We were like, let's try and get Sarah on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then we're like, yes, it's happening.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay,
We
that just
love
made
your
my day.
TikToks.
I love that. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I love your whole aesthetic of your podcast. I was like noticing all of your like social media. It's top notch.
Thank you. That's all Sadie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So for people, our listeners who maybe don't know you, do you want to tell them a bit about yourself, what you're known for, your little, I guess, journey maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Sarah. I always say that I have like a double life because I've been known for two capacities of my life, I guess, going in pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So by day, I'm a producer in sports content. I've worked in sports for 6 years now. And then by night, but really by day still, I daily vlog my life on TikTok. So I started doing that early on in the pandemic, like right when it hit, just before actually. And then I like really took it seriously during the pandemic. And then now it's grown into a second job and this double life that I live, that now I have like two versions of myself. I producer Sarah and then like TikTok content creator Sarah. And I'm based in Toronto and I just show what I do, even if it's boring, and I just make breakfast in the morning and drink a coffee, but people seem to like it. So I've continued to do it every day, 3 times a day, at least for the past year and a bit.
Wow. That is an insane amount of content. Like,
yes,
I can't even wrap my brain around it.
No, I am well aware it's because I am insane, but yes.
You're dedicated.
Yeah.
And that is so key.
Neurotic, dedicated, whatever word we want to use to describe it, sure.
Oh man. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, how would you say you like balance working a full-time job and doing a content, being a content creator? Because I know a lot of people like starting in the industry, they're trying to work on their side hustles, and it's kind of like a hard thing to navigate, I think.
I think the hardest part for me is the fact that I think if I was not in a creative job during the day, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's not any easier for people. Like managing like 2 jobs is still difficult. Content creation takes up so much of your time and it's such a passion project. You put so much of yourself into it, but I do it for work 9 to 5. And then I also do it for myself. It's 2 different types of content. I'm making content for a big organization, a big brand during the day, and then for myself, like at night, as I say. But I think it would be really different if I worked at Sephora during the day and like I didn't like a regular job, quote unquote, and not content creation, because I need to constantly be thinking creative and content, but in different forms, whether it's for work or when I have an idea, am I like thinking about it for work or am I thinking about it for my own content and whatever. That's the thing that I've had to learn how to balance, because I never really created content for myself before until last year. And then the past year, once I started full-time again working, it's been a real balancing act to learn how to not burn myself out, because it's really easy to get really worked up, especially when you have to invest so much of yourself as a creative when you work as a producer during the day and then after as well.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. I think like even with our podcast, like it's always like, okay, like we have full-time jobs and it's like in the evenings, it's like, okay, working on podcast stuff. And it's definitely like setting boundaries and like,
for sure,
trying to like, we always are like doing little things to like try and look out for like our future selves kind of thing. And it's like, how can we like plan ahead of time or whatever, so it's makes our future lives a little bit easier, because it's just like, go. And I think that's relatable if like our listeners or, regardless of what that side hustle is, like it definitely is demanding a lot of time. So yeah, finding those like balances and like setting those boundaries is definitely key to avoiding burnout.
Yeah, so important. And I think it's just like, I'm the same way. I'll try and pre-film content for days that maybe I'm just like not feeling too hot and don't feel like filming. Then I just like will post that stuff, or I just have to be really like real with myself about it. And I have to let myself like chill a little bit sometimes, because like now that I've set this expectation that I post 3 videos on TikTok a day, and I sometimes will only post 2, but like that's very rare. It's usually 3. I always try to hit that 3 video mark, but I sometimes have to let myself chill on that, because when I started that 3 video a day thing, it was when I wasn't employed and I didn't have a job, and I was just doing that during the day, right? But yet, because that became my standard, I was like, oh, this is what people expected me. This is what I expected myself. I'm going to continue doing this as my goal. And I love doing it. Like I love making the content for myself, but it does feel like work sometimes. Like it's just like anything in life, right? Everything that you do too much, it becomes a job. Even if you love you're doing your podcast, it does some days, like you're going to go to those days where like, oh, like I don't want to have to edit this right now, or like cut out these ums and ahs, whatever it might be, right? So yeah, it's just being honest with yourself and allowing yourself to just like chill a little bit, which is something I'm learning how to do still.
Yeah.
It's hard.
100%. Yeah. And I always feel like once you do give yourself permission to chill and like just take one day off even, it's like you always come back, even one day off, you'll come back like feeling a lot more energized, and like those creative ideas will start flowing again. And you're like, okay, that one day off was actually worth it, even though the whole time you might have been stressing that, oh, I could be doing something, but you're not doing it. It's like you'll come back, definitely more ready to work.
Completely
agree. Do you think you'd ever go full-time with your content creation, like knowing right now you are balancing the two, or are you still like really loving your day-to-day job too?
I get this question a lot. I think I would love to find a world where I can find more of a balance, because right now I'm just like kind of, I'm gonna hit a wall eventually, right? Like the Olympics are 2.5 weeks away, and I'm gonna be working 20 some odd days straight and balancing TikTok on top of that. And I think I'm going to allow myself to take some breaks after, but I would love a world where I could kind of merge the two if possible, find a way, because I still love producing like high quality feature and sports content. Like that's something I'm always going to love to do. And I said this to somebody yesterday, actually, like, and my friends on the weekend have pointed out that like, if I ever went like full time, I feel like a lot of my authentic self is then gone, because part of the reason I think people can relate to me and my lifestyle is I don't live in Los Angeles and just make content for a living, which props to the people that do that 100%. But I'm not that. Like I'm showing that you can live a very realistic life, I guess is the best way to put it. And I would feel, who knows, like if I had like millions of followers overnight, maybe we're having a different conversation, but like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So I think I'm always going to want to find that balance of work with my own content. One, because I get bored really easily and I like to mix it up and I like new opportunities, new things, but I would love to find a way where I could help brands or help other like organizations or whatever it might be grow their TikTok, or like make TikTokers see like that type of style of content or short form video, or find a way to merge the two. But I really don't, at least for the next few years, I don't see myself ever going full time, just because I feel like so much of myself is tied to that life, right? And so I feel like part of the reason people follow me is because I do work and that makes me more relatable, I guess. So I don't know. I don't see it anytime soon, but I'd love to find a world where I can have more of a balance, because I'm going to burn out otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. It's so interesting to me, like people graduating from college and whatnot. Like our podcast is talking to like people in their 20s, and like people graduating from college want to work like full-time in social media. And even like, you know, kids in high school are like, when I grow up, I want to be like a content creator. I want to be an influencer. And it's just like, this is a whole new job that like kind of just like emerged overnight. And I feel like even kind of with your story, it was like, you know, like you said, you're posting consistently and whatnot, but then it's just like all of a sudden you're like at almost 100,000 followers on TikTok. And it's like, wait, what? Like, this is my life now?
Oh,
you know,
100%,
like
100%. Like I talk about this with my friends all the time. It's like the weird, like I just describe it as weird. I have no other way to describe it, because like I've been, I'm the person that like followed influencers, followed YouTubers forever. Like I've actually been to VidCon twice, like not as like a creator, but like as like a fan. Like I've always loved that space. And so it's just kind of weird, because it kind of just like hits you one day. Like, I don't know, there was no number, there was no like there wasn't a brand deal. There was not like a thing that hit me that should be like, oh shoot, like those are real people. Like they're real. And like, I think it was the first time I might've gotten recognized in public that I was like, oh shit. Oh wait, can I swear on this?
Yes.
I was like, oh shit. And it's so funny because I'm actually going to, after this, going with my friend Ailish, and it was a year ago that her and I went for a drink, and we were walking through a park, and this girl like screamed, "Are you Sarah?" And Ailish is like the very outgoing person that like grabs me and goes like, "Yeah, it is," and walks me over, where I'm like, oh my God, I've consumed too much alcohol to be in this situation right now. I have no idea what's going on. And then me, my imposter syndrome going, oh my God, I think these girls are making fun of me. Like, I don't think they actually know me. I think they're just like, you know what I mean? Like, that was my first thought. So then I go, and then this girl looks at me and she just goes, oh my God, did you have your iced coffee with almond milk today? Oh my God, is that your ever, like, starts like spewing things off. And I must have looked like I saw ghosts, because it was that moment where I realized, oh, right, I am sharing everything about my life on the internet and people are watching it. And then that was like the first real life moment. And now my audience is very Toronto centric. I probably get recognized like at least once a week, but it's like this weird, like now it's not as weird, but that first time it happened, I was like, oh wait, that's how people know me as now. Like, I'm not Sarah from like the sports world. I'm Sarah like from TikTok. And when someone called me a TikToker at the mall, I was like, oh, which I know I shouldn't be embarrassed by that, but it's like a weird, like someone was like, are you a TikToker? And I was like, I guess. I go, I make content on TikTok. So it kind of hits you in the face one day, and then it's like, oh, right. And now people call me an influencer, which is like, I understand like what I do is influence people, but there's such a negative connotation to that word and like that whole world that it's like this weird transition. It just hits you one day. I don't know also way to explain it. It's so weird.
Yeah. And that was something I wanted to ask you about, is like, do you have imposter syndrome? And like, do you ever worry about like people in like real life? That's kind of a dumb way to say it.
No,
but like
it's
people
true.
in real life,
how I describe it.
Like, like seeing your content and like even judging you, like maybe people from like high school that you knew like forever ago, and then all of a sudden they like see you on like TikTok, like, you know, it's just like, do you struggle with this or like think about this?
All the time. I did last year probably a lot more. Like I think when I was at about like the 30 to 40K range, where I was at, like still getting really good viewership, and I had started to get sent a few free things and like whatever. Like I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I think that's when I felt like, oh, people probably think I'm so lame. Like people probably think this is so lame. But once I like started, I think it was, I'd say probably like December of last year or November of last year, once it started to pick up a little bit more, and I was over 50,000 and like whatever. And it started to become like a bit more real. I stopped thinking about it that way. Like whether people from my hometown, I do not care. that's one thing that I don't. It's actually pretty funny because I'll run into girls when I go back home, and they'll go, oh, my friend from like Waterloo is obsessed with your videos. They want to know how I know you. It's like, oh, that's Sarah, I went to high school with her, like that kind of stuff. Hearing they watch my videos is weird. Like, so I'm like, okay, like we and I haven't spoken in 10 years, but okay, sure. Now you know what I eat for breakfast. But then when it comes to my career is when I've actually struggled. I was struggling with it quite a bit, because I was like, well, I mean, I'm coming out of this like not really pandemic. I was coming out of like not being employed with like this TikTok following, which was like kind of growing, but I was like, I didn't know what it was yet. I didn't know if I should be taking it seriously. And then I was going back just to work, and I didn't want to give up TikTok. So it was this weird like transition where I didn't know like how much effort I should still be putting into it. If people are going to think it's lame, like, are people at work going to know about it? I work with a lot of people older than me. Like, are they going to get it? But now like, they're like fully on board. Like I'm like helping do TikTok during the Olympics and stuff like that. So that's like a little bit cooler now. Like I have people reaching out to me from like my past life through other places I've worked that have said, oh, like my so-and-so's a fan. Like they just know that I've always had this side of me and that type of content I've always wanted to do. So I feel better about it now, but I'd say last year I was like real like stressed about it. Anyways, all to say is the imposter syndrome is real. Like it always is. Like, and especially like for me, because okay, so like I'm about to hit 100,000. I don't see that as a big number, because if you look comparably to people on TikTok that have hundreds of thousands of followers, but then I have to check myself and remember like I have 100,000 people, but it's like a highly engaged following, which I actually grew on TikTok very differently than most people. Most people grow on TikTok where they get like one video that goes viral, gain hundreds of thousands or thousands of followers overnight. And then after that, it's just like the rest of their videos kind of plateau. Whereas mine's always just been like this like steady incline. I've never gained more than like a couple thousand followers in a day. So I think I get imposter syndrome in that sense too, because I see like people that have hundreds of thousands of followers or whatever, but they don't get that many views in their videos. And I'm like, oh, like, how did you get like that opportunity, whatever it might be? I just have to check myself and be like, I have a great audience. And then like reel it in a little bit. But yeah, I think everyone has it, especially when you put your life on the internet for everyone to judge. So.
Yeah.
Totally. 100%. I always think that like YouTubers I watch, I'm like, if I were to see them, I would know literally their exact
Everything.
Starbucks order. Like I would know like the
That's
layout
how
of their
I am.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. And I'm
That's
just
why
like,
I'm
it
not
makes me
weirded out
feel
when people
like,
say it to me. Because I'm like, I do the same thing.
Yeah. And it's just like, but that's why you love the content so much, because you like feel like watching your TikToks, I'm like, I feel like I'm Sarah's friend, you know, when I like know her, like we're hanging out while I'm watching your video. So it is definitely like really great content, but I can't imagine being on the other side of it where people, like you said, are like coming up to you in public and you're like, oh shit, yeah, you know my entire life.
Yeah. It's
so crazy.
That part's just like, it's just funny because it's just the realization that the numbers are real people. I think people get caught up in numbers, and I think as someone that I produce like television as an example for a living. When I see like we had 75,000 viewers on a television show, like I don't see that as people. Like I see that it's just like, oh, that's the number I'm trying to reach. Now with TikTok, it's like breaks down that wall and I can see the people, and it's like, I don't know, it's more real, and you kind of forget that those numbers are people sometimes.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. Do you find that you struggle with like balancing living in the moment or like living to create content because you have to like create so much?
That's a great question. I think if there's one thing I've done a really good job is like I've always been good at living in the moment. I think it's because I'm not a YouTube blogger. YouTuber, I'd be like bringing out like a massive camera and be like, oh, I got to get this shot, whatever.
Right.
I do that with my phone. Like I still go, okay, 1 second before we eat, I'll just go, one moment. And it only takes me 2 seconds though. It's like, I mean, because realistically in the vlog, that's like 5 seconds of content. So I just go, do. So we're all good. And then like it maybe takes an extra minute out of people's lives. It's not like I'm doing it really like obnoxiously. And the one thing the biggest compliment I get from my friends is they'll always like, my friends will call me and they'll be like, you were vlogging today? I go, you should always put in the assumption I'm always vlogging. But they're like, I didn't even know. And then I see myself in it later because I'm like really good at being like really low key. Cause like, I don't want the attention of like people in public. So I think that's the one thing I've been really good at. But the one thing that's actually been great about it is I can understand where like you'd think like, oh, like you're worried about like just making content. The nice thing is because it's my life, it actually forces me to do things a little, like do more things. Like on a day that maybe I otherwise would just be like sitting on the couch. I'm like, okay, no, like let's go for a walk. Let's do something. Because I want to be able to like do something more with my day. I'm finding myself like trying new restaurants. I'm trying to like more of that type of stuff because I want to be able to. I've just been showing the same lockdown vlogs for the past 6 months. So I want to be able to like do more stuff. So I think actually that's where it's been really good for me.
Yeah, we've talked about that
I love that.
before, I think. Like there's a point where it's like, maybe don't go out of your way to stand in 2-hour lines to take a picture by a mural. But like, for sure. If you're kind of trying to romanticize your life in a way because, you know, you want to eat a salad for lunch and then you get a cute Instagram picture, like that's maybe a little bit more, you know, of a reasonable way to live. 100%. Yeah.
Or like maybe it's like instead of just ordering a beer, I'm ordering a nicer cocktail or something. There's like little things like that you do that you might change, but it's usually for like the better. Yeah. Or like now that the borders are starting to open and like we're starting to be able to travel, like I'm prioritizing travel now because I know it's going to be good content. And obviously because I also want to travel, but I think part of it's, I'm like, the type of content we're gonna be able to make is going to be like something I've never done before, which excites me about that. So I think it's just pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone, which is actually a really good thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
I love that so much. That's the other thing too, is like a TikTok video is like 60 seconds max. You know what I mean? So it's like by the end of it, like you just have like these little snippets of your day. So it wouldn't be too time consuming versus like a 40-minute YouTube video.
Exactly.
Like, it's your whole day. You need like a lot of content. Yeah, that's a good point.
So how do you think your sort of content's going to transition as we're starting to hopefully leave the pandemic? Because like you said, a lot of it's been kind of based in like the working from home sphere and stuff like that.
I'm excited for it because it's so funny. Like the running joke with my friends is like, Sarah would like become famous. I'm not famous. That's not what I'm saying. But my friends always go like, you would become famous for doing mundane tasks.
Oh, no, you're famous.
They go, you would be famous for doing mundane tasks when you're the most like not mundane. Like I don't do that like in real world. I'm like, you know that TikTok where it goes, no sleep.
Bus, club, another club, another club, another club, plane, next place.
That's my favorite sound, because that's like in regular life, like I was always zipping off on weekend trips. I like love going to concerts. I like buy last minute tickets to Bud Stage just because I get FOMO. So I go every single night. And then like that's the type of stuff that I was doing before. And then now, and I was like traveling for work and doing all these cool things. And then we had a global pandemic. And then I gained an audience of me just like sitting at home, which I've never spent so much time at home in my life. I used to never care what my apartment looked like. And I only started to because like the pandemic. So I'm really excited to just get back into like my normal, in the sense of just like going out and seeing more things and being with people and everything. And I'm already seeing like, I went home for the weekend last week and everyone's like, I'm loving these home vlogs. I'm like, oh, just you wait. Like, you're just sick of my apartment. Like I am. Like, if you're loving me at home, like wait until I'm going to visit, like one of my best friends lives in New York. Like I'm looking at Billy Bishop Airport from this right now. And like, for me to be able to just sit for a weekend and see her, like that's like nothing. And so I'm excited for that type of stuff. I like travel content. Like, I just think that's like such an untapped thing on TikTok because no one's been able to travel. And so I think it'll be really interesting. So I have like a trip booked to Paris and the south of France in September, and I've never been before. So like I'm going with my sister, and like that's going to be great. And I just think that like, I don't know, it's going to be, I'm really excited for that, you know, more than just like hauls and what I eat in a day and that type of stuff that I can only do at home. I'm just like, I'm antsy for it. Like I'm just ready to go out and do something.
Yeah. 100%. Do you feel like it'll become overwhelming? Like, as like you're, you know, like right now you're just kind of balancing work, like your day job, and then content for TikTok, but then now we're going to also start like layering in like a social life again and like, you know, your concerts and stuff? Or do you think it'll just be, you know, right now it's just kind of like capturing quick little videos for your daily vlogs is just like part of your routine now, where it won't be like an added thing once you're, you know, back out in the real world?
It's such a routine for me now. Like I have it down to like a science. Like even before this, I was like, okay, like I have to finish a vlog before I go on this podcast, because then I'm starting a separate video for going out to a patio. And like my mind thinks like a producer, right? Like that's my job. So like I think like a producer, and I think about the storyline and okay, this is how the voiceover is going to go. Okay, I have time to do this. It takes me 5 minutes to add my text and do my voiceovers. Like it doesn't, I have everything. I barely have to edit usually, because I know my transitions. I know how it all works. So if anything, it's actually going to make it easier, because right now I find I have to plan a lot of content. Like, oh, I guess I'll do a haul today because I have no other content. Like I'm just going to be sitting at home. Or I guess I'm going to do I don't know, like another book video, whatever it might be, just because I have nothing else going on right now. I actually think it'll be easier for me when I'm out doing stuff, because I'm always going to have a story to tell. Or I'm always like, if I'm going to a concert, I can think of right now as an example, 3 different videos I can get out of that. Get ready with me for a concert at Budweiser Stage. I can do go with me to a concert at Budweiser Stage, where we go to dinner before and then we get to the concert. Maren Morris at Budweiser Stage concert experience. Like that's 3 videos right there that I can get out of just like one thing. I think what I am going to have to get used to is not necessarily post. I always post the second I'm done a video, like almost immediately. Like I'm notorious for being at a friend's house, going into their bathroom, doing a voiceover, and then posting the video. Like I think I'm going to have to stop that a little bit. Like I'm going to have to like just bank some of them. I've done it in the car too. Like drunk coming back from a winery in the car, which was like, I listened back to them. I'm like, oh, why'd you post that? But it's already on the internet. So whatever. So I think that's where I'm going to have to like figure out a new schedule. But yeah, I think I'm excited for it more than anything, actually.
Yeah, we're excited. I'm so excited for this travel content. Like,
I just got a new backpack today. I got an away backpack. Amazing. Those ones that have all I know.
Ooh.
It was a birthday present. Nice. And I'm like, oh, we are ready to go. Packing vlogs. How do I pack in this backpack?
Yeah.
We'll show the packing before the trip, because post the trip, I'll just shove everything in because I don't care.
Yeah. So funny. Awesome. I love that so much. One thing I wanted to ask too is, you mentioned, this wasn't one of the questions, so I don't think I'll catch you too off guard, but
you can ask anything. Honestly, I'm an open book. I'll ask, you can ask anything, except for maybe how much money I make. People ask me that on TikTok and I just don't answer it.
No.
Yeah.
We won't ask you that here. And so basically where we're going to go is if you have any tips on people who are wanting to become content creators or get into the digital content space. But one thing I wanted to hone in especially on was your 3 videos a day. Like you said, like that's probably not sustainable for everybody. Like it is a lot of content, but do you think that's been key to your growth on TikTok? Do you think like that would be a good place to start if other people are wanting to grow a following on TikTok?
I don't know if I necessarily has to be 3. I just think the formula for the type of content I do works for 3. And it was because, and honestly, the only reason I started doing 3 was because like they're only a minute-long videos. So I was like running into the issue of I don't have enough time to actually show what I want. So I need to break it up. But it ended up working out nicely for people that want like morning routine content versus like nighttime, whatever. What I would say the key is just that consistency. So when I'm talking about 3 videos a day, like that just means I'm consistent, right? So I think the number one thing is consistency. Like the amount of people that I see that, whether it's friends or other people that go, oh, I want to make my own content. I have this idea. They start it, they do it for 2 weeks and they stop because it's like not getting clicks or it's not doing whatever. Like, I think any person that's been like successful, quote unquote, in content creation will tell you that like, one, you're not doing it at first with the assumption that someone's going to watch. Like I really was not like in my pajamas with my hair in like a towel thinking that people are actually going to watch it. Like you just do it for like the love of it. And like in my case, I was doing it to learn the app and learn how to actually physically use it so I could be more hireable. But I think anyone will tell you that you just have to be consistent in whatever you're doing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be consistent in the same type of content, but just be consistent in content creation. Like if you're like, maybe, I don't know, like posting on YouTube as an example, and you're posting every single Thursday, you have a small but dedicated audience, and you stop posting because you don't think that audience matters. Like, well then, yeah, they're not going to keep watching you because now they're not like used to you being on Thursdays, right? Now, like I love when the YouTubers I follow have consistency, or I love when I know that like a TikToker I follow is going to post like today, this type of video or whatever it might be, right? Like I think people love consistency and they love knowing when it's going to be there and everything. So I think that's always the biggest key, no matter how big or small your audience is. It doesn't have to be 3 videos a day, but whether that's every Thursday I'm going to post, or I'm going to post 2 videos a week, that's my goal, or whatever. I think like creating tangible goals like that for consistency is really key.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that.
So how would you say you maybe maintain motivation if the clicks aren't there or the views aren't there? Because I know like in the podcasting space, they say that 90% of podcasts end after 3 months because obviously, you know, you're a new podcast, you're probably getting like 5 listens a week. And it's hard to kind of maintain that motivation, I think, if you're not seeing the kind of instant gratification that maybe you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's a nice part about my job being in that world already. Like I was used to that. Like there are videos that I make for work that I have spent like hours on that will get like 100 views. And I was like, that was like thousands of dollars of my effort, really, when you think about them paying me, right? But I just got so used to that world and like understanding that like literally creating content is just throwing pasta at a wall and seeing what sticks. It's literally all it is. And so I think because I got used to that in my real life, it wasn't a surprise to me when it would happen in this. Like TikTok ebbs and flows like a lot. Like I used to probably be able to, I used to be able to predict, even now I could like pretty much predict what follower count I'm going to hit because I just had this consistent, steady growth of like, let's say like 5 to 10,000 followers a month, whatever it is. It's not that much anymore because it's plateaued quite a bit because the For You page doesn't work the same way. But I think you just can't let yourself like for me, I mean, like, so say my videos were like flopping, quote unquote, and I was only getting between like 12 and 15,000 views a video instead of like between 30 and 40,000. I just have to remember, I would just remind myself that those 12 are there's still people. It's still 12 to 15,000 people, right? Or like 10,000 people with some watching it twice, whatever it might be. So I think that's what kept me going. I also just like kind of have an obsessive personality. When I start something, if I stop it, then I'm done. Like I'm not doing it anymore. So like the day I stop posting 3 videos, I'm never going back to posting 3 videos again. You know what I mean? Like that's just how I work. And it was problematic, but I remember David Dobrik on his podcast years ago said that he was like, the day that I stop posting 3 times a week, then I'm never going back to it because why? Like once I figured out I'm not going to, and I think I'm the same way. It's literally me with reading books right now. The reason I just am obsessively reading books is because I'm really into it right now. I know if I stop, then I'm not going to do it again. So I think that I'm more fueled less by numbers and more by just like my own like insanity to like meet certain goals of content creation and how much I'm outputting rather than actually like what's being successful or what videos are popping off or whatever that might be. So I think like it just depends on what you're fueled by. Some people are fueled by numbers. Some people are fueled by comments, likes, whatever it might be. Whereas mine is kind of just like the amount of videos and content I put out.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love how you said like you use it as a motivation to like get up and do new fun things and like push yourself outside your comfort zone. And I think like just bringing that point up again in this space too is it's like find a reason to create content and like do it because you enjoy it, not because you hope overnight you gain 100,000 followers from this video, you know?
Sure.
And I think that's like super key for anybody who's looking to enter.
And I think that's like I think that's like the not dangerous, I don't know if that's the right word, but it is like the hard place that people are in now, right? Like I think
totally
the people that I watch on YouTube now, I watched when I was 13, 14, and they did not know that at 10 years later they would be like multi-millionaires with houses in Los Angeles as an example, right? And I think the same went for TikTok. Like when I started actually outputting on TikTok like heavily back in like, I don't know, I guess February of 2020, I didn't know that it would ever like become like a job, right? And I think that's the whole point is if it's anyone that you've ever spoken to that does that doesn't go into it thinking it's going to become a way to get free makeup or this and that, you know what I mean? Like you can't go in thinking that way because then like that's like the least authentic thing possible. And I don't think anyone relates to that. Like like there's this whole culture on TikTok that I keep getting that keeps being fed to me. It's like this micro influencer culture on people that are like how to become an influencer. So I look at that and maybe it's just my like, I don't know, just pessimistic. Like I look at it from a perspective of like my production brain is like the definition of the word influence just means that you have or influencer means you have an influence over a group of people for a given reason. Now it's been turned into this term that's like what I think of when you hear the word influencer, you think of a girl that's like carrying a Chanel bag, posting on Instagram, her aesthetic pastel nails, like whatever it might be, right? So I think that's like the issue right now is that people are like trying to become influencers when really like you don't really try to become an influencer. Like you just either have influence over a group of people or you don't.
Right.
So I think that's where it's really interesting that it's kind of heading in that direction, which I'll be interested to see. Like maybe you can be successful just like trying to become an influencer. I personally, the people that I know in my real life that have tried to do that, it doesn't work. Like you need to just either creating content or bring value of some sort. Like at least that's what I want in people that I follow. So I don't know. It's just, it's interesting because I think people sometimes now, like you said, kids that want to grow up and be YouTubers or this or that, I totally love it for the creative thing. But if you're just thinking about it for like fame and like money perspective, then like maybe that's not the right reason to be doing it.
Yeah. And like you said, like people see through that so easily. Like they know it's not authentic. So like, yeah, you probably won't see success the same way as if it's like something you actually love to do. So I think that's such an important part. An important point. Yeah. I know now you have, I think, just over 15,000 followers on Instagram as well. So how did that kind of work, knowing you started on TikTok? And are brands now wanting to work with you on TikTok and Instagram, or like what has that experience been like?
Yeah, so I hated Instagram. I've always hated Instagram, like straight up. I've never been a fan of it. It makes me so anxious. I never liked it, and I never liked posing for like photos and stuff. Like I just never was a fan. The only time I liked doing it was like in other cities on vacation because I'm like, oh, I don't care if I look like a tourist because like I am. I never liked it. And then I always only like stories. I've always loved Instagram stories. That was like what I love to do. Yeah. I never liked Instagram itself. And then I kind of had to start liking it because I was like, oh, there is like an audience here. And like people are following me. And I had to change my approach to Instagram. Because I'd say until I hit 10,000 followers, I was like kind of embarrassed. I was like, I don't want people to start thinking that I'm like trying to be an influencer. Right. But like really, then it started happening. I'm like, okay, but now it's like a significant enough audience that have come from TikTok that I'm like, okay, like these people want to see other stuff that I'm doing and like more of it, I guess. I mean, I assume, maybe not, but that was the assumption I've been working under. So that's why I try to post, like, I try not to, I mean, I think might have been dead most of the time. I try not to let my Instagram stories like die. Like I always try and post more now. And feed posts, I try to post at least once a week. But yeah, more people are trying to collab on Instagram now as well, especially because the Instagram influencer market in Toronto isn't that large. So when it comes to there's opportunities to make money on it because there's not like it's been monopolized by like the same group of like 20 girls for so long, and now they're like trying to find new faces. The one thing that I struggle with is I've never posted on Instagram Reels before, and a lot of brands think it's as easy as taking a TikTok and throwing it on Reels, which is not, right? And like I would never post my vlogs on Instagram because Instagram is like, I just know people would send like so much hate and stuff. So like I don't do that. Maybe I'll play around with it more when I'm like traveling and do more of those like artsy, like aesthetic, whatever. Like that's the type of stuff for Instagram in my brain. But I don't know. It's really interesting trying to like learn how to balance both. I'm like still learning how to get better at Instagram. I've always been good at it for like a work perspective and like that, but doing it for myself has been a weird transition a little bit.
Yeah. Interesting. I feel like people are typically the opposite. Maybe that's just because I am such an Instagram person, but I'm like, it's now seeing Instagrammers try to use TikTok, and you're like, maybe you should just stick to Instagram.
Also, I've always been a Twitter girl.
You're like, I'm TikTok.
It's because I've always been a Twitter girl. Like, I had a fangirl in high school. I had a fangirl Twitter. This is why I was a loser in high school. I had a fangirl Twitter where I would tweet about Justin Bieber and like pop culture and celebrities and stuff. And then like, I'd just sit in my room. I'd go home, open up my laptop, sit in my Justin Bieber covered room.
I love that.
Tweet about Justin Bieber from my Bieber's One Less Lonely Girl Twitter account. And then I would like, that's all I did. And I would go to concerts. I'd go to the city with my friend Lily and like, blah, blah. I would go to Mitch Music, try and meet celebrities. That's all I did. And then I played hockey. That was my life. And so I was always a Twitter person. So that's also when I say I have a double life. Like, I'm like verified on Twitter and stuff because I work in media, and like I'm actually pretty big on like Leafs Twitter because I like used to cover the Maple Leafs. So now it's like this weird mix of like, I don't know what my Twitter is, because now it's like I tweet about sports, but then also I tweet about The Bachelor, but then also I tweet about TikTok trends and things, and then it's just like it's this
and
weird
the odd
like,
Justin Bieber fangirl tweet.
The odd, 100%, 100%. So it's just this weird like. Yeah, so I was never an Instagram person. I was a Twitter person. And TikTok reminds me more of Twitter culture, I think, than Instagram does, and the way that people like act and the jokes. And like, I mean, how many people make TikToks that are literally just tweets over their shoulder, right? So like that whole culture more reminds me of it. I think that's why it's more safe to me. But yeah, I don't know. If you want to teach me how to use Instagram better, like I will happily take it because I'm still learning.
That's so funny. Man. But I love that too, because I think that's such a great point, is like, just because you can create content on one platform doesn't mean it's going to work on all platforms. And I think that's like a really 100%. Smart thing from your end, is you're like, you know, I need to learn how to use these other channels for myself. So I think that's awesome. Do you have any other tips for people who are wanting to become content creators or like get into the digital content space, even if it's like working like a day job with an agency or a company like you do through the day, just like content in general?
I would say constantly be learning how to like pivot and learn how to use new platforms. Like that's the reason I ended up on TikTok, was just because I was trying to learn how to use TikTok. But we are no longer hiring people that are like just tweet or like just run Instagram or whatever. Like you're looking for people that have lots of tools in their tool belt, as they like to say. So learn how to edit video. Like video content is clearly becoming like the priority on every major social platform. Instagram made that dumb announcement and all of that stuff, right? Like it's clearly becoming like video is king. So I'd say if you know how to edit, if you know how to use the Adobe suite, if you know how to do audio editing, because podcasts are so big now, right? Like there's the more that you know how to do by yourself, it's just gonna make you way more hireable. And then also just like understanding the trends on whatever industry you want to work in. Because if you want to like represent a brand on Instagram, that's gonna look, or in social in general, that's gonna look different than representing a media organization or creating news content or whatever that might be. So I just think like constantly being aware of industry trends and what's going on, but also the new and emerging platforms that are coming up, because everyone wants to be big on the newest platform. And I mean, if you told me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that Twitter or TikTok was going to be as big as it is now, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So I think it's just always important to be watching that, and then also just making yourself as hireable as possible, because there's so many people, and like these young kids know how to use everything way better now, right? And like I was like the young kid that knew how to do everything, and now I feel like there's like these even younger kids that are like, you're an old washed woman, like what are you doing? And so now it's like, I don't know, I just think you kind of have to be like constantly pivoting and like watching trends and seeing what's happening.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And it's like you said, just like build up that toolbox, like be a graphic designer, be a copywriter, be a video editor.
100%.
Like, yeah.
Learn how to write.
Do
That's actually
everything.
The most needed skill to do literally anything, but like anything in content creation, being able to write and just like, yeah, being like a copywriter, like you can then tweet, you can then like write articles, you then do like literally anything. Like that's like the most valuable skill that anybody can have. Because people that are bad writers, like usually you can't do a lot of other things either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Perfect. Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
So thank you so much for Sarah for joining us today on the podcast. We're going to link her TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter all in the description. So make sure you go and follow her because she puts out some really fun and engaging content. And if you want to follow us on any of the social platforms, we are at Our Golden 20s. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Pinterest, and TikTok sometimes, although not as much as Sarah. And if you want to show your support for the podcast, get episodes early and additional content, make sure you subscribe to our Patreon. It's, as I said, the best way to show your support, and we appreciate all of our patrons there. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We put out a new episode every Tuesday, and we will see you then.